make great paths for the American working man for the American working man.
Welcome to the Inward Investing Podcast. I'm Mike Ritter.
And I'm Todd Whelan.
And we have our 1 year anniversary show.
Woo! Good thing for Facebook.
So we have this big show today that, well, last week you got on Facebook and Facebook notified you via memories that we've actually been doing this show for 1 year.
1 whole year.
And I honestly would have never even guessed it. So this will be episode number 43, I believe. And
but that doesn't equal. Is there only 43 weeks in a year?
Well, that's why I would have never guessed it, because I assume week 52, to be honest with you, is just one big blur to me. And thank you for everyone who's listened to, I don't know who's listened to every episode, but for the people, I know you're out there, that are actually listening to the show. First of all, I want to say I am incredibly grateful for the fact of your listenership and for you actually, hopefully you're getting something out of it. And I just can't say enough. It's been a really, really fast year.
Yeah. I can't believe it's been a year. I mean, for me, I just come in, talk to you in a microphone, interview some people with you, and then leave. So it's been super easy for me. Just schedule it out. All right, it's good. Just like a client. For you, I mean, I'm assuming it's probably just the same, right? You don't have to do any back-end work or editing or anything.
I liken this to parenthood, where if someone were to ask me today, should I start a podcast? Or they say, what is podcasting like? I'll say, it's a lot of work. It's awful most of the time. Half the time, you don't really feel like you have any time for yourself. And then if they ask me, like most people say, well, do you think it's worth it? Should I do it? I'm like, oh, yeah, do it. Definitely do it. And that's the truth. It's a lot of editing. It is a lot of work. It's a lot more work than I thought it would be. I know a lot of people have like staff to do this stuff. And if you're listening to the show, like you might notice some weeks we have sound bites on Instagram and Facebook, you know, some video clips from the podcast. We even have one show where we have the entire episode of video, but other weeks we have nothing. You know, we have like the audio recording only, and that's just because that's all me. I'm doing all of the production, and I'm happy to do it because I want everyone to have access to the show if possible. Some people just want to watch videos. Some people just want little sound bites. So I'm working as hard as I can to make sure we get as much media out there, because I do feel like we have a really good message. I feel like you're an excellent strength coach that people need to listen to. And there's a whole different aspect to this whole health thing that even weightlifters don't always think about. And that led us into, let's talk about like the birth of the whole show, like how this got started. The whole aspect of weightlifting, well, I would say we're involved in the fitness industry, and we do weightlifting ourselves. We've trained people for a long time, and as we've worked together, we realize that a lot of our clientele, or even people that aren't our clientele, people that are extraordinarily regimented, they like working out by themselves, maybe ripped or an advanced level of training knowledge, sometimes really suck at the other parts of their life, like having decent relationships with people, or living in a crummy apartment with no windows and they just feel depressed at home, so they take it out at the gym. I think over time I realized that no matter who you are, we're all looking for an opportunity to become a little happier and improve our quality of life. Now, the fitness brochure says you will become happier if you do this. If you get a six-pack, if you work out all the time, you get this endorphin rush, serotonin boost, and all these things, you'll become happier. And we've seen it throughout our lives. Like, after a while, if you hang around the gym long enough, you realize that's not always true.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
I think I maybe even spoke about that in one of our episodes, like where I had like, oh, I needed to get to this weight, and then I'd be like the most perfect ideal body, and I'd be great. Then I got to that weight, and I didn't really look that much different. Like, oh, I need to gain more weight, get more ripped, and like still nothing. So it was most factors outside of the gym that made my life better.
Yeah, and of course, we're both big proponents of fitness, and I think a lot of our listeners are already kind of bought into the fitness idea. But let's talk about the downside for a minute. The downside of fitness is that you sometimes you get good at what you practice, right? So if you practice fielding ground balls, you know, to a certain degree will get better just by repeating that over and over. Sometimes when people get into fitness and they're not aware of this, you become really good at being self-critical.
And you could also be getting really good at being mediocre or being good at not getting results.
Yeah.
By being mediocre.
Yeah. Just coming in and mailing it in a little bit.
Well,
and
hey, I'm going to the gym. I got a trainer.
Yeah, yeah. I go there, therefore I'm fit, and those things are taken care of. And sometimes we notice that when people get in that mode, it's because they're not taking care of other parts of their life. Like well, that's why we came up with the Big Four. Big Four is what we would suggest 4 components of life that add up to a better quality of life. So when we say quality of life, what does that mean? That means your health, you have your health, you have good relationships, your environment, like physical and emotional environment, is supportive of what you want to do and who you are. And your goals, you have goals, you have drive, you have focus, you're headed in a specific direction. I mean, if you have 3 out of those 4, you're probably doing pretty good. But you definitely notice when you feel really good and your relationships are pretty good, like you said, being really good at being mediocre, it's because your goals don't exist. You don't have anything that's pulling you out of that comfort zone. We know some people that might have really good relationships. They're very friendly, kind, they work really hard, they're healthy, but their environment sucks. So they just kind of unwillingly get into a rut over time. Like, that's another thing that can really hold you back. When I say environment, I could be talking about toxins in your, pesticide exposure. Could be talking about that apartment with no windows. You get very little sunlight. You have a depressing environment.
Or a job that has no windows.
Yeah, people that work in these Amazon huge distribution centers where they might be in there 12 hours at a time with no windows, and it just feels very manufactured.
I worked at a gym like that for many years. It was in a basement and then a sub-basement.
Wow.
Yeah, in New York City, so no light.
Is that common?
In New York City, I think it's more common because it's just space. Then you could drop weights because it's concrete. It's not on like the 2nd or 3rd floor, so you don't have to worry about weights falling on other people's heads.
Dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
but then if things flood, ooh.
We don't have any flooding in Florida.
No water issues here.
So, Todd, let's talk about the last year. I want to know, what would be your biggest takeaway, reflecting back on all 42 shows, prior to this, what would be some of your biggest takeaways from before you started the show to now? What have you learned?
From the show, or just about the entire process as well? Both. All right, so
I want to hear your experience. We haven't really talked about this much in person.
No. So from the show, this kind of goes in with probably my 2 favorite interviews as well. All right, so the last interview that we just did with
Marty Kendall.
Yes. What a brain fart. He Jedi mind tricked me into forgetting his name. With Marty, talking about all the micronutrients and how you're probably deficient in things you don't even know about. All right, so I consider myself to eat pretty healthy. I eat cookies and ice cream every once in a while, pizza, but generally protein, carbs, fats, veggies I can get more of, but try and get enough I eat a lot of food too, so I try and get a lot of food in because I'm very active. So I'll eat on average 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day. So I hate tracking my food, but after that episode, I've tracked my food probably 7 or 8 times, and that's only a week ago, a little over a week ago. So I've gotten almost every single day tracked, and he called out what I was going to be deficient on even before I even ate any food. like things he said in that episode, I am deficient in.
What?
Eating like all the food that I eat. Like he's like, oh, most people are going to be deficient in magnesium. They're going to be deficient in potassium and like a couple other things he said in the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I take my multivitamins. I take a green supplement. I eat bananas. I eat all this. Like, I'm going to be good on all these things. No way. Like, potassium the other day. And, like, so in my pre-workout.
That's with supplementation.
Yeah, in my pre-workout and my intra-workout have electrolytes in them. And I was at, like, 30% of my potassium for the day.
Wow.
Yeah. And my magnesium, I don't really know what foods. I'm sure you know more about, like, what natural foods have that in it. But, and, like, taking a multivitamin, I was at, like, 50% of my magnesium. Zinc was low. Like, it was just, like, using the chronometer, however you pronounce it.
Yeah,
Chronometer. Using that app, seeing some of the, like, and that just gives you a brief rundown of, like, things. So, like, there's some things I'm getting, like, 8,000% of my vitamin B, whatever, and this and that. But then other things, like, super low or just getting to it, like, I only hit it once or twice. So it's just, like, it's crazy. So then, like, I'm starting to try and, like, okay, find foods that have more of this. And so, I mean, this is an ongoing thing because it was just like a little over a week ago that we interviewed him. But, like, okay, now if I start introducing these foods, will I feel better? Will I perform better? So, like, I'm going to start, like, looking at my Whoop app, like, my recovery, my sleep, see how that goes if I'm, hitting more of these micronutrients. So, like, a world of nutrition opened up that I didn't even know about, like micronutrients, like macro, protein. But now it's like, what about your potassium? I get tons of that. Sodium, I get tons of that. Like, no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And then another thing that from this past year, like, is the interview with Mike Ash as well, right? So, like, he, a pastor who works out, but I just walked away from that interview wanting to be a better person, right? That's, like, always my goal in life is to be a better person and, like, raise a good child. Like, I want my daughter to be, like, grow up to be, like, a great person. Like, that's what I was put on earth for. And, like, he made me want to be even better, like, at things that I do. So it's just, so, like, being better, like reflecting back on this past year, right? Like, so getting my nutrition a little bit more specific, right, with micronutrients, and then trying to be a better person and saying yes more to people and just doing more things for people without, like, thinking how it will impact me and everything. Those are some of the takeaways that I've gotten from this year.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about this on purpose prior to this, so I'm hearing this all for the first time. That's pretty awesome. And I can say that the interview with Mike Ash was probably one of my favorites also, for that very same reason. There was a couple quotes that he mentioned. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should go back and listen to it, folks, because, it's always kind of, it is a little bit touchy having a pastor on a show because, you have the risk of someone of a Jewish faith or a different faith in general, or somebody with no faith at all in religion, shutting the show off right then and there.
Yeah.
And possibly even not listening ever again. But we had him on because he's an interesting guy. And his faith is part of it, but he's also a guy who I feel like has the humility of...
I mean, wasn't he almost in jail?
Yeah, he was part of a gang when he was younger.
Yeah.
And he stole a car and he was heading the wrong direction. Uncle forced him to go to church. And he's the kind of guy that I gravitate to because I think you and I both fit in this category, is that it's not that you're perfect. And our expectations of ourselves isn't to be perfect. My expectation of you, and you the same, is not to be a perfect person, but it's to be brutally honest about those things. And when you are headed in the wrong direction, allow positive influences to take over in your life and change the course of your direction. And, I loved the fact that he said no one's a villain in their own story. And we tend to judge other people by their actions and ourselves by our intentions. That was one golden quote that I took away from that. And I've seen that information and that conversation transform the way that I talk and handle other people as well. You know, I just had another conversation personally with a client, and he said a sign of maturity is realizing you can't put yourself in other people's shoes. You know, a lot of us attempt to be mature and put ourselves in other people's shoes when we're having a conversation or a dilemma, but there's another level of maturity beyond that, which is realizing you can't actually do that. And I think that's also what he was getting at, was you have to be able to give yourself permission to screw up and change. You have to give other people that same permission. And that's what I hope this podcast has become for other people, is an opportunity to be brutally honest with themselves about the way that they are conducting their life. And if there's a box they could check and do better in order to serve other people better, I know that I've done that for myself, and you sound like you've done that. And Mike was definitely a big part of that. I would say for myself, I have some takeaways. I mean, beyond the Mike Ash one, that was definitely one for me. Another one is that it's been pounded into me that there really is never one clear-cut answer. I mean, we've had the opportunity to talk to some really, really good people, and people that I consider higher performers: Kyle Dobbs, Mike T. Nelson, Rafe Kelley, who's a brilliant mover.
Petty D.
Pat Davison. Pat Davison was so fun to talk to, because I feel like we only said 3 words the entire time, and he was on a stair climber the entire time. I never heard him out of breath once, and he had 1 hour of just running his head through a wall basically while he talked to us. And after you talk to enough people over time, there's no one answer, but the common thread with everybody has been effort. No matter what you do, you have to give it a lot of effort, and that will never be changed. And, you know, I think about, you know, doing the show, editing, we were talking about that before, my professional life, physically, that nothing will change unless you give it effort. And then I feel like a lot of the better performers on our podcast, the people that have had the most success, also they give a lot of effort towards one thing, and then they remove things that could potentially derail them from that vision.
Yeah, which increases their effort for their vision even more.
Yes. It's like taking the e-brake off.
Yeah.
And I think that's another level that hopefully people have gotten from our show, is that you can give a lot of effort, but unless you're looking out for those hidden obstacles or put up guardrails and barriers in your life to prevent you, even if they seem silly to other people, if your vision or your goal is important enough to you, you have to trim things out of your life that could influence you in the wrong direction.
Let's trim our kids out and build a podcast studio.
That is one big obstacle we could get rid of. Okay, so let's poll our audience. Should we?
No, we shouldn't.
Okay.
We would be lost little souls without our families. At least I know I would.
I definitely would. As a matter of fact, my wife took the kids to Sebring, where I'm from, 2 years ago or so, maybe a little longer than that.
I remember this.
Yeah, and it was awesome. For the first 12 hours or something, I was like, you know, I felt like Ferris Bueller on day off, like I was just doing anything I wanted. But then for about 12 hours, and then once you kind of get that out of your system, you realize, man, when you have people around you that genetically are basically you, and you get used to that support, even if it's frustrating sometimes.
Just that different life.
It's a different life, and you realize, man, I don't actually want this.
Single life. Oh.
Yeah. So if you remember, I left work on like a Friday and went back down to visit them just because I couldn't stand being away from my family. And
I remember that now. You come in and you're like, oh, I got this single life, and then like, yep, I'm going down to visit them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Watch, it'll happen to you. I don't know when, but I mean, there's gonna be a point where you just get. So I think everyone experiences this. You get so tired of I don't want to say tired of your life, because it's never a conscious thought to say like, I don't want to do this, but fatherhood's tough. And so you just think, the real thought is, man, I just want to go golfing. Like, give me a couple hours. The thought of going for a weekend with your buddies to somewhere, hanging out with them sounds awesome. Like, and you think, hey, I really want that. I really need that. And then when you actually get it, it just feels lonely. It really does.
Your phone. Hey, how are the kids? How are you doing? What's up?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, I remember saying, I wish my kids were old enough for me to text them. You know, at the time they're like 5 and 1. And, you know, I've heard people say, I wish I could text my dog. You know, you get used to that companionship and you miss that communication. So that's one thing that's important. And it just so happens that we've had a lot of family people on the podcast too.
That's also true.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Almost all the guests that we pick, and they are hand-picked, are either fathers, mothers, or they're just really high-level professionals.
But usually in a relation. I think most of them are at least in a relationship, a steady relationship.
Yeah.
A healthy relationship.
Yeah. And who was your favorite guest?
Well, that's what I said.
Aside from Mike Ash.
And Marty, like those are the top two. And then of course, like, I mean, Pat Davidson's one of my idols in the field right now. So, I mean, he was obviously up there.
He basically called us pussies for an hour.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. I walked away feeling really good about myself on. I mean, if someone hasn't listened to that show, I'm joking.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. He was actually really, really nice, but he talked about effort and basically said that no one on earth gives enough effort.
And that guy gives effort too.
And that guy gives effort.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that, like, I mean, so after talking to him too, like, it's also like him making a post on Facebook or something and like kind of like we've talked about this many times, like intentionally like saying something like just to get like a rise out of people, get people talking. Like he wants people to think, like he wants people to like challenge things and think, right? Like, okay, we do a push-up. All right, good. Like, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Because it's great for everyone. Well, like, why? Why are we doing it that way? Why don't we, you know, put your hands on a foam roller, put your feet against the wall, drive your heels on the wall? Like, oh, wow, this got a lot harder. Yeah, why? Okay, now like, so just asking, like, the why and, like, why are we doing it this way? Like, why can't we? He's challenging the beliefs of people. And I think, like, some of the things that'll come out of that are going to be like a standard, and some of the things, like, and he admitted it too, like, will probably just go by the wayside. Like, okay, I was wrong, let's keep moving. But he's going to keep moving forward, like, you know. So he's taken steps, and that one step he put his foot in like quicksand, but his other foot's on solid ground, so he's able to pull himself out, and then that next step's going to be on solid ground as well. Like, oh well, just keep moving forward, keep putting that effort there, like you said.
Yeah, it's all built around effort. All right, so I have another one for you, Todd. Over the course of 1 year, what have you changed your mind about? Something that you believed prior to the podcast that you believe is no longer true, if any.
Finding a place to podcast is really easy. A nice, quiet place to podcast and interview people, super, super easy.
How many locations have we used? We've been a pretty mobile show. We've
backyard, this office,
inside,
your bedroom,
inside my bedroom at home. I think that's it. 3 different locations.
Just 3. No, well, you were in your living room at the table, in your bedroom. I think you interviewed someone in your backyard.
Yeah, so 4 locations.
In this office, 4 locations.
4 locations. And that's the life when you're not Mark Maron.
Joe Rogan.
You have a studio.
Yeah.
I recently talked to a guy who had his own podcast and decided that he no longer wanted to do it anymore. He did like 2 episodes, bought all of the equipment, broadcasting quality, everything, then decided he didn't want to do it because he couldn't do it the way that he wanted to. And he couldn't have somebody write out the show for him, and he wanted to do everything. And I've never been of that thought that if I can't do it perfect, I won't do it. And although that sounds like a perfectionist attitude, like I think that sounds really good. Like, oh, if I can't put all my energy into it, I'm not going to do it. Well, that's not entirely true either. Like, there are some things that you just have to start and get better as you go. I can't tell you how many ideas haven't been followed through with just because somebody didn't start it.
Yeah.
And, right out of the gate, we did a couple shows that I thought were fantastic. If somebody hasn't listened to the Big Four episodes, I haven't gone back and listened to them. I think that maybe our broadcasting, our speaking on what's the
our speaking on the
speaking on the microphones,
yes.
On the microphones and the speakers. I don't know if we're speaking to the speakers or speaking to the microphones, but it's gotten better.
Yeah, that statement really clears everything out right there.
God,
that definitely got better.
God bless it. But if you haven't listened to those episodes, I highly recommend going back because it's a good foundation going forward. But you can see the evolution of our show, and the quality of guests we've gotten has been beyond my wildest dreams, and being able to speak with people that we would personally pay to talk to.
Yeah, I guess like something I learned is like most people in the world that you like put on a pedestal don't view themselves on that pedestal and will be like, oh yeah, I could chat with you guys for an hour.
Yeah.
Like, never did I think some of these people that we had on for interviews would be like, yeah, you two, I don't know you from like a brick in the wall, but like, yeah, I'll be on your podcast. Oh, you guys are just starting? Okay, no problem. I don't care. Like, it's like, really? We have like, it's not like we're having millions of followers right now, but like we're going to.
Yeah.
But, it's just cool that people are that open. Like, I think there's more, for as closed off as a lot of people may be or seem to be, if you engage with them in a positive way and like a straightforward, like you said, brutally honest way, we're not like, we reach out to people and say, this is what we will do, this is what we want, would you like to come on our show? And most people are like very willing to come on, or they'll just completely ignore us.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I would say we're probably like 90+%, 95% of the people we reach out to have probably responded.
Yeah.
Been on the show. So.
That would be one of the things that's changed my mind. One thing I've changed my mind about the most over the last year has been how accessible people are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's crazy, like, that you this person wrote a book or 3 books and you read about it and they have DVDs out and you're like, oh, this guy's awesome. I took his certification course, and then it's like, yeah, I'll be on your podcast. What do you want to talk to me about? And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And like, and then for some of these people, like too, like if you look on their website, it's like, okay, if you want an hour consultation with me, it's going to be $500.
Yeah.
And they'll just be like, oh yeah, I'll be on your podcast for an hour for free. You ask me whatever you want.
You just got a $500 conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's been a really good idea when we do interview people to interview them. I like to talk to the human being, mm-hmm. because that's something you can't get in a $500 consultation. Yeah. I like to know if you talk to enough people that are at the top of their game at that time, and you talk to the human being themselves, not just the professional. Like, what do you do when you wake up? What's your biggest fear right now? Mm-hmm. Like, what drives you? What prevents you from moving forward? You find all these common threads between them.
What are your habits with your family? Like,
yeah.
What's something you do? Like our question we ask.
Yeah. What are rituals with your family that you do on a regular basis? Because it's kind of like, if you don't have everything together at that time, and you get the opportunity to talk to somebody who, at that time, it's not that they always do, mm-hmm. they're all people, but at that time, they've been able to pick up a few things along the way. You get to draw from that, and you get to put it in your life right away, which could automatically change the dynamic of your family, and you can pass that along to other people. And I think that's one reason why people are so forthcoming to come on the show, is that they had somebody do that for them, mm-hmm. and they look at it as paying it forward, and we are going to get the opportunity to pay that forward to somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like, I wonder, I was thinking about this when we interviewed Marty, like how many people we've impacted. Like, the people that we've interviewed for our podcast, how many things that we've said to them like made them think a little bit differently, or like, oh, you know what, those two schmoes are right. Maybe I should, think about that. Because like we talked to like Kyle Dobbs, he goes for a walk with his family, rain, shine, whatever it is. After dinner, he goes for the walk. But like we talked to Marty, and he's like, I guess we eat dinner sometimes on this day together or anything. But I wonder if that like sparked anything, and like his head, like, oh, maybe like, let's go do this. But like he definitely, like, once we started talking, he was like, oh, his daughter comes in and talks about her day or whatever with him. So like it's a precious moment, and like that he never wants to like leave. But I wonder if it like made, like with other guests and everything like that, if they've thought like, oh, you know what, maybe I need to start something, or maybe I need to, pay it forward a little more by doing something else or something like that.
Maybe I do need to invest inwardly.
Or like, yeah, or if we're talking to them and like they don't have one of the big four, like do they like go look at their like reflect back and like, you know what, like maybe I need to change my environment a little bit or something like that, and just
being able to pass along these ideas, I think, is everything. I mean, so that's a good transition. I was going to ask you this question, but I'll start with my answer.
Is this like Jeopardy?
I haven't guessed the question. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite non-interview episode of ours? And my personal favorite, because it's just a good transition what we were talking about, was How Do You Want to Be Remembered? And I don't remember at all what I said. But I just spoke from my heart, and I still feel the same way. I remember what I said, and that was, I want to be remembered as somebody who gave my life away, who gave it to people, whether it's my talent or my time. That was given. Yeah, whatever they think my talent is. But that was a really good episode, because I felt like I wanted to marinate that myself, and I don't feel like many people think about that part. It's hard for people to think about being gone, but what matters to you the most. And some people might say, I don't want to be remembered. I want to live my life, and then I'm out.
We've had people, I think maybe Pat Davison said he didn't care about like being remembered or whatever. He just wanted to do stuff now and then, like, someone said it.
Giosi. Jeff Giosi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He said he doesn't want to be remembered. And he wants to live his life. He wants other people to be the star in their story. He doesn't want to be a part of it. And I mean, that was a really interesting, that in itself was a really interesting conversation. A guy who got in his own way, ruined a lot of relationships, but had some friends that would not give up on him. And he kind of...
How many different couches did he sleep on?
Many. And we talked to him just a few months ago, and he was only a year out of marrying a woman that was somebody who would never give up on him. And he has every reason now to straighten out his life. And everyone loves a comeback story, but he was a good example of how your relationships, like, he was not his own best friend. And he had some people that would not give up on him, and how much your relationships matter to you. And you pick the right people, or the right people pick you, and you can go through almost anything with the right relationships.
Yes, sir. So favorite non-interview. What about the interview with... No, just kidding.
Was it the keto one where we got to prick our finger?
Well, that was cool. That was like a scientific experiment with me with my scientific brain, which was pretty cool to do. And hey, I was keto.
You were keto for a bit.
Keto. I think, there's been a couple of them where it's gotten really like personal and like deep within, which I didn't think, like, we have topics that hey, this is what we're going to talk about, X, Y, Z, this and that. But then sometimes those conversations just turn into something a little more deeper and more personal than I thought would ever come into. Like today, we're just going to recap our year, ask these few questions, and then be done.
Right. We have this running joke that we're going to record a 20-minute podcast every time. Our goal is to trim these things down to 20 minutes, and that's our goal every single time. And right now we are hitting minute 35.
20 minutes. 20-minute podcast. It's just, I guess you don't really talk about yourself too often. So, like, being able, and I don't like to talk about myself at all. Like, when you say things like, oh, you're a great strength coach and you're strong and this and that, like, I don't view myself as that at all, because we have people we look at who are like, oh, that guy's, deadlifting this much, and that
your
guy
eyes are always
like
up.
This. Yeah. So, like, I just don't ever view myself as that. I don't like to talk about myself. Like, I'm a trainer, so I'm here for, like, my clients and everything like that. So, like, I don't even, like, film them, like, because I'm just in the moment with them, and, like, I get yelled at because I need to do more social media stuff with them versus just myself. But I never think about it when I'm with them. Like, I'm here for them. So, like, talking about myself sometimes feels really uncomfortable and awkward when we're talking about it, and it's happened multiple times on here where it's like, oh, I need to say this and it's going to be weird to say out in public, but it's made me, I think, appreciate things more, and like where I've come from looking back on it. Like, yeah, I was that super skinny, insecure kid coming out of high school. And then, but like I said, like on a couple weeks ago, like always very athletic, but like never looked the part.
Yeah.
So like just being able to say that, and maybe someone out there is listening, like, oh, you know what? Like, you don't need to look the part to be the part. I guess it doesn't really make any sense, but whatever. Know what I mean? Like, if say you want to be an actor, but you don't have, or you want to be on a soap opera. They all have like all the dudes have like very chiseled jaw lines, and they all look, very coiffed, and like they all have a certain look.
Coiffed is a word I haven't heard in a long time.
I don't know, just spit out of my mouth right there. But like they all, like if you don't fit that part, but maybe you're a like super good actor and you can, do that or something, or like a super good singer and you're trying to get on Broadway, but you don't look the part, something like you just keep going, like living your passion and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think your story is something, some people don't realize how powerful their story, even if you're in the middle of it, no one remembers the middle of a story. They remember the beginning and they remember the end. So we're in the middle of it. You don't feel like you're doing anything of substance, but that's when you're probably the most in tune as to what the process, whatever it is, losing weight or gaining weight or that's something that people need to hear about the most, because it's the mindset and the grind and the step-by-step attitude and the focus that matters the most, and how much your story can help other people. I think you really forget about when you're in the middle of it, because you feel like you're not done.
Yeah, like my story's still going, so I'm still trying to, try and figure it out. So I don't think I have like these answers, but then people will come up to me and be like, oh, thank you for that, and it's like, I don't really do anything. I was just, just chatting with you. Like, oh, like, there was an athlete at the gym that came to me the one day, and she's like, oh, ever since you told me to do this, like, my squats have gotten so much better. I feel great. And, like, there's no pain anymore. And I was like, awesome. And I walked away thinking, like, I have no idea what drill I gave that person. No idea what I said to them.
Just because it was a passing conversation?
Yeah. And they took it to heart. We're doing it, like, as homework and, like, in the gym. And then the next time I coached them, like, a couple of weeks later or something, I saw them. They're like, oh, my God, this is the best thing. Like, and I was like, that's awesome.
How inspiring was it for you to hear that?
It was very inspiring for me to hear that, but it was also like very uninspiring from a personal viewpoint, because sometimes I'm not in the moment. Like, I need to be in the moment more. So like with her prior, like I was probably just thinking about something else. Like, oh, why are you talking to me? I want to go work out. Or something, something like I'm super hungry. I need to eat. I've been here for 8 hours already with a protein shake only. Like, I need to eat something real quick. But, like, it's part of the job talking to people afterwards and everything like that or something. So, like, and I said something. So I wasn't in the moment then. So then I lost out on some of the excitement of the moment that I was in with her later on.
Yeah. How many people out there do you think are going through the same thing, like missing opportunities to inspire other people or recognize their own accomplishments?
Tons.
Everybody.
All the time. Everywhere. Yeah. That's crazy.
If there was one takeaway, I think well, I mean, there's a number of takeaways, but if there's one big takeaway for the audience on this one, it's to sit down, which is what we're doing right now, a one year anniversary episode, to sometimes sit down, take some time to have a genuine conversation with somebody or write or journal and acknowledge your accomplishments for what they are. It doesn't mean that you're bragging. It doesn't mean that you don't have to over celebrate, but acknowledging where you are and really processing the takeaways from them really helps you help somebody else, empower somebody else to make a change. It maybe not be perfect, but make a change in the right direction. And when you get that feedback from helping somebody else, now all of a sudden you got the Super Mario star.
Yeah, exactly.
For another couple weeks yourself. It's like a self-fulfilling. Yeah. It's the self-licking ice cream cone. Once you help somebody else, even if you're not perfect, you help somebody else and they get a positive change, all of a sudden you get a nice little kick in the pants and you push yourself forward. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden you're not the one pushing yourself the whole time.
Yeah.
It's a nice little community effect when you actually share your story and help. So bragging is something that is all about you. It's funny that when you actually put all of your energy into other people, after you get somewhere and you don't have to offer advice like it's the only way to do something. You can offer tips and, hey, this is what my experience was. These are my big takeaways. You share those with other people. They see a result. Now that feeds you. You're getting better. More people see that. More people ask. You get to have a genuine conversation with other people. And as long as you're in the right place, it's not just a bragging thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Siri was listening to that whole thing. Oh my goodness. That was scary. Is Siri one of our listeners?
Siri's a sponsor. Oh, Siri's not talking to me.
Oh no.
We said her name too much.
Our Siris are going off.
That's what you told me, right?
Oh my goodness.
All right.
We need to get off the air. Quick.
Yeah. So just to rewind, so two quick things. One, when you were talking about how we're in the middle of our story, right? So there's a quote I saw yesterday from Usain Bolt, right? So Olympic gold medalist. I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds. There are people who do not see results in 2 months, give up and leave. Sometimes failure is sought by oneself. Like, I saw that yesterday.
Wow.
It was just crazy. So, and it just made me like, oh, I'm in the middle of my story. Like, so Usain Bolt, 3 years in to training for the Olympics, like, oh, Olympics aren't until next year. Like, he has a whole nother year of training for his 9-second race. And like just the dedication, like, so that was like, oh, we're in the middle of the story, so it's like, yeah, you know what, like, I saw that yesterday and I was like, you know what, like, that's right, like, I'm in the middle, like, I started my journey, like, year one's done, like, all the beginning phases, like, I know, like, who to look for solid information, like, who to go for, like, how my body does, so, like, now we're in that second, maybe we're in year 2, I don't know, or year 3, I don't know what it is, but we're definitely not in the beginning portion, but we're definitely not at my 9-second race yet either. So I thought that was really cool.
That's incredible. And that reminds me of the quote I heard after an Olympics. A guy won in the snatch and clean and jerk. He totaled and won gold. He said, "This is the best day of my life. I've been working 17 years for this." He worked for 17 years to do 6 lifts.
Yeah. A total of like 10 seconds.
A total of 10 seconds of work. And, it begs the question, have you given enough effort towards your goal, and have you given it enough time? And I guess to put a ribbon on that, another Mike Ash thing was he gave a talk called 5 Steps for Change, and we're going to do our own 5 Steps for Change here in the upcoming weeks. But it was a story in the Bible. No matter what your faith is, this is an interesting story. There was a guy that was sick and just walks up to him and says, "Do you want to get well?" And Mike said, that's like asking anyone, "Do you want $1 million?" Like, of course.
Yeah.
But think about the depths of that question, though. When you're sick, or you're not doing well, or you're in the middle of a journey that you don't feel like you can get out of, and somebody asks you, do you want to get well? Getting well means you probably have to change a lot of things about your life. You probably got used to begging, probably got used to people helping him, probably got used to certain accommodations or hardships, and you just learn to weather. When you get well, you have a new set of expectations. You don't hang around the same people anymore. You don't hang around people that are counterproductive in your life. You have to go get a job. You have to work. You have to consistently work for 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, 30 years regularly. And do you want to, if you're going to change, do you want to accept all the responsibilities that come along with that? And he's right. A lot of people give up after 2 months because they expected an immediate, drastic result. And that goes for any area of our life. We see it a lot in fitness, though.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Well, we have spent 1 year, quote unquote, on the air. And
creating 20-minute podcasts.
Creating
that go way longer than 20 minutes.
The longest 20-minute podcast ever. So I'm going to go ahead and sign this one off. 1 year. This has been the Inward Investing Podcast with Mike Ritter.
And Todd Whelan.
Sponsored by
Siri.
Tom Brady.
Kit Kat Bars.
Dr. Pat Davison.
Cleveland Indians.
Tampa Movement Lab.
Nike.
Publix.
CrossFit Hyde Park.
Apple.
That's what I was going for.
We're not out yet.
Clorox Bleach.
The NFL.
The Flash and Marvel DC Comics. Wolverine and Marvel Comics.
Whey protein. Kale. Asparagus.
Bananas. Apples. Oranges.
And I think that's all of them.
Oh, and steak.
We will see you next week for 1 more year.